welcome to Airtips. My name is Jen Rudd and I'm with Adept Interfaces. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about why you would use Airtable versus Google Sheets to capture and action off of data. I build a lot of complex automations in a low-code and no-code environment, so I do use a lot of Zapier or even direct connection between software. So it's important to me to use the right software for the right job. I wanted to use a scenario where we're keeping track of Calendly bookings on a sheet so that we can action off of the information. The theory behind this is that if you're using Calendly, for example, for sales calls, for assessments, as your first kind of line of defense for leads, it's great to keep control of when people are booking and kind of know what happens after somebody books a sales call, an assessment call, and then see kind of your win rate and things like that. So that's why you would probably want to capture all of your Calendly appointments on a spreadsheet. You can also tie it into your CRM. So if somebody reaches out to you, you add them to your CRM. And then later on, if they do book a Calendly call, just making sure that, you know, what lead source they came from, when they booked, and then kind of that life cycle and so forth. So that's why you would possibly use a Google Sheet or an Airtable table to keep track of your bookings to kind of see your win rates, for example. So what I did was I created two different scenarios with Calendly. One is going into an Airtable base and one is going into a Google Sheet. Okay. So these are both hooked up and we are going to go ahead and fill in an appointment. So I'm going to call this Sandy Stevens. I can't spell. Hello at Grow with Jen. And then they're going to have a Zoom call and stuff. Places. 508-695, blah, 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 blah. Okay, and then extension and so forth. And then I'm going to go ahead and schedule the event. And through the magic of Zapier, you will see Sandy Stevens comes into my Airtable base and with the status is scheduled and lots of places, all of her information is captured. Okay. Same thing with Google Sheets. Bam, super simple. Now I'm looking at my sheet, and as I start to get more information and I start to kind of mess with the data, I want to show you what happens with the two different sources. So let's go ahead and watch me horribly create a formula. I can't spell con. Needs B2 and B3, right? I don't know, C2. Watch me build stuff. Okay, and that's not what I want. It's actually B3 and C. B2 and C2. Okay. And I don't want to do that because that's not what I was looking for. I wanted to put their first name and their last name together. So it's 3. And D. This is sad. Okay. I totally get that. And then spaces, right? So like I was just going to go like that for right now. Let's just be C. Right? Okay. Then I would do spaces and so forth, but then I want to be able to fill this in, right? So that when somebody comes through, it automatically happens, right? And then I'll leave the drop downs and so forth right now. But sometimes I want to keep track, for example, you don't want to move, do you? Their emails first, like the status is nice and I can group it. I'm going to drag it. I want their first name first, and then I want their email address. So I can kind of create like a CRM out of this, right? Okay, so I move their phone, email, and so forth to the front, and then if I spent more than 3 seconds on a formula, that would show up. And then so I have some information here, and then I want call notes as a field. Okay. So then I'm going to put the call notes over here. And then I'm going to change this date and time. Date and time here. Okay. And so I'm going to do something similar in Airtable. I'm going to change the name first, last. And yes, I do this faster in Airtable because I do it all day long. Okay. And then I want to move stuff over. And then now, since I have their full name, I don't really need it. I'm going to go ahead and hide this field. So here's the status. I want the phone number and email address first, because I want to use this as a CRM. And then I want the date of call, right? And then I'm going to go ahead and say that I already talked to myself, books, and then I can group by status. Okay. So then I can do a lot more on this sheet just to show you, like, it's prettier, right? But then also I moved a bunch of stuff in Google Sheets, right? So let's go ahead and book again. Oh, and then let's change something so you know that I'm not. What did I change over here? I changed the date and time. Let's go ahead and change the date and time just to a single short answer field, just to show you. Okay. Then I'm going to go ahead and book again. Boom. Okay. And then let's see what happened on Airtable. So you see that they went into the right grouping, and the date comes through as a funky date and time. And you can see it fixed. I would check to make sure that the GMT time is correct. But that's a different conversation. But so yeah, I would just make sure that if you're going to change the fields in Airtable, that they make sense, because I wouldn't book a call at 6:30. So that would be the only thing. Whereas in Google Sheets, you could see that this, I have to pull the concatenate down myself. And you'll see that all of the scheduled is now in this column, because that's column B. And then column C is testing, which is the first name, and testing is last name. And so you see, because I moved stuff around, it didn't pick up everything correctly, right? Because like call notes, I don't have a field map to call notes. So that's in kind of a nutshell why I like Airtable versus Google Sheets. The date and time notwithstanding, you see the date and time does map with Google Sheets, so I will give it that. And this is because I was playing back and forth, but because I was reading GMT time. Anyway, so that's kind of why I use Airtable versus Google Sheets, is because usually you're doing stuff once it gets into a Google Sheet. You're not just capturing it and saying, oh, that's nice, I have data. You're actually doing something with the data. If you want the data to be actionable where it hits, then you're going to want to use something like Airtable. If you're using Google Sheets, you can't move anything. You can, but then you have to remap everything. Whereas Airtable, like, it doesn't matter that you're doing all of this formatting and stuff like that. And again, this is just because it picked up the GMT time. But you see I move stuff around and it doesn't break anything. So that's really why I like Airtable versus Google Sheets, among many reasons, besides the fact that it's pretty and you can do stuff and it's really powerful. It's also because you are able to move the data around and action off of it after the fact without messing things up necessarily. So again, it's really up to you, but I found that I do less rework when I use Airtable as my Google Sheet, even if I do nothing in the system. It allows me to move stuff around and format it because to Airtable, the field is the field. It doesn't matter what row or column the field is. You'll see that when you're making new views, each view is going to have the exact layout that you want. But then when you move stuff around, it doesn't break anything necessarily. It just says, okay, these are the fields and that's fine. So you really want to make sure that, like, whereas in Google Sheets, it's like, okay, this is column A, this is column B, this is column C. Okay, well, I moved something around, so now column A is now column Z. And Zapier is like, but no, you wanted it in column A. So it's nice to have that dynamic linking because you're going to want to mess with the data. You're going to want to change stuff around. And if you're just using it to collate information and then running another Zap off of that, great. But if you're really trying to do something with the data, using an actual database like Airtable, which is a low barrier to entry database, allows you to start actioning off the data once it comes through Zapier or Integromat or whatever. So that's kind of the reason why I like using it. So I just wanted to show visually what happens. But if you have other things that you'd like to share, go ahead and share them in the comments. And thanks so much for listening. If you have automation needs or would like to discuss using Airtable in your business, give me a shout out. Again, it's Adept Interfaces, ADEPTINTERFACES.com. I'll also drop that in the comments. And again, if you have questions or things that you want to share, I'd love to hear it. But just wanted to show something, visually what happens when you move stuff around and why I like Airtable. Talk to you soon.